What does it look like when a mother uses her faith, her position, and her power to systematically destroy her own son? Over the last 2 years, disturbing details have surfaced about Joni Lamb and the way she treated her son Jonathan Lamb and his wife Susie. These are not small disagreements or normal family tensions. These are serious allegations involving the cover-up of SA, spiritual manipulation, professional destruction, and cruel treatment even at the end of her life. In this video, we will carefully examine whether Joni Lamb displayed clear patterns of narcissistic behavior in her relationship with her son. We will not rush to label her in the beginning. Instead, we will look at multiple pieces of evidence from her statements, her actions, and how she treated her own family, and see what pattern emerges. To understand Joni Lamb, we have to understand how she was formed. Joni grew up in a strict Southern Pentecostal home where love was conditional on performance and public image was everything. After the drowning of her younger brother, she carried the pressure of being the perfect child who would make up for the loss. This environment taught her that control, loyalty, and protecting the image were not just important, they were spiritual duties. This conditioning later shaped how she operated as a mother, a leader, and ultimately, how she treated her son, Jonathan. The first major test came when Jonathan and Susie discovered that their young daughter had been SA by a male family member. Instead of protecting her granddaughter, Joni reportedly defended the abuser. According to multiple accounts, she told Jonathan and Susie that she had prayed about it and that God had shown her the man was innocent. She reportedly urged them not to go to the police, saying it would damage the reputation of Daystar. This is one of the most serious allegations in this entire story. A grandmother choosing the public image of a television network over the protection and justice of her own abused granddaughter is not normal maternal behavior. This is a mother who had become so identified with her ministry's reputation that she was willing to sacrifice her own family to protect it. The control went even deeper than this. People close to Jonathan and Susie have shared that Joni would sometimes tell Jonathan that her voice was the voice of God. This is an extremely dangerous form of spiritual manipulation.
Not trying to.
You know what?
Not trying to change anything.
Well, I'm saying that's what we're talking about. So, given those two options, which is it?
That's what we're here to discuss.
We're not discussing. We're telling you.
That's what we're trying to. I'm trying to understand and come to terms with Joni with.
She's God's voice to you, related to Daystar. Whatever she says goes, without argument, without difficulty. Can you do that?
I will stand on my convictions before God. I will do the job that I signed up to do, which was to talk about God. I believe that your marriage is outside of Daystar.
Well? Your job is to do what she tells you.
Talk about your mother and put her Instagram up. That's not talking about God.
I don't understand what you're talking about.
You put her mother's Instagram. So y'all should follow her. She's on a worldwide on ministry now.
Oh, I didn't know that was wrong.
I mean, I'm submitting that it's going to help to have open conversations instead of just letting things build up.
Once you're submitted, it will. And submission means she's the voice of God to you. Now, I pastored for 30 years in Amarillo.
I'm sorry, can you clarify? You said she's the voice of God to me?
She's the voice of God
so
to you.
God's voice is...
So I have to hear, I can hear from God, I have to hear from her?
Outside of Daystar. What she says is God in Daystar.
When a mother tells her son that disagreeing with her is the same as disagreeing with God, she removes any possibility of healthy boundaries or disagreement. This is not the behavior of a loving mother. This is the behavior of someone who needs total control and uses spiritual authority to enforce it. The Doug Weiss situation revealed the same pattern. After Marcus Lamb's death in November 2021, Joni began a relationship with Doug Weiss. Within roughly 6 months, they were engaged. Jonathan and Susie raised serious concerns, not because they were jealous, but because of the extremely short timeline and questions around Doug Weiss's previous marriage. Instead of having a private conversation, Joni publicly accused Jonathan of opposing the marriage out of bitterness and jealousy. She framed her son's legitimate concerns as rebellion and personal attack. This is a textbook narcissistic response. Anyone who questions my desires must be attacked and discredited. Jonathan and Susie were not against their mother remarrying. They were concerned about the speed and the impact on the ministry. For raising these concerns, they were punished and publicly shamed by their own mother. When Jonathan refused to stay silent, the punishment became professional. Jonathan was asked to sign an NDA that would have prevented him from speaking about his daughter's abuse. When he refused, because he could not promise to stay silent about what happened to his child, he was immediately stripped of his vice president title and demoted. Later, he was fired. This is how narcissistic mothers often destroy their children in professional or ministry settings. The moment the child stops being useful or obedient, they are removed, discredited, and replaced.
My kids pale in comparison to how they've treated him like shit. I mean, I'm just telling you, it is so disrespectful. Marcus Lamb would kick Jonathan's butt if he was alive right now, in the way, and the things he's done, the things he said, the fact that he would care more about what people think and his reputation than honoring his mother.
There is no room for a son who has his own conscience. Even in her final days, the cruelty did not stop. When Joni was dying in May 2026, Jonathan and Susie were never called to her bedside. They lived minutes away, but were not given the opportunity to say goodbye. This was not an oversight. Multiple people close to the situation have described this as a deliberate final act of punishment. At her funeral, Jonathan was treated like an outsider in his own family. He was not permitted to speak. His closest friends were moved away by security, and the eulogy delivered by Jentizen Franklin was widely described as a public shaming of Jonathan while he sat in the room. A mother who had spent years using control and image to manage her son continued that same pattern even after her death. Now let's look at the full pattern. When we put all the evidence together, a clear picture emerges. Joni used spiritual language to control her son. My voice is the voice of God. She prioritized the reputation of Daystar over the safety of her granddaughter. She publicly attacked her son when he raised concerns about her marriage to Doug Weiss. She professionally destroyed him when he refused to sign an NDA silencing him about his daughter's abuse. She excluded him from her deathbed as a final act of punishment. She allowed, and some say encouraged, him to be publicly shamed at her own funeral. These are not isolated incidents. This is a consistent pattern of behavior over several years. A mother who truly loved her son would have protected him and his family, even if it cost her reputation. Joni Lamb repeatedly chose reputation and control over her son. So was Joni Lamb narcissistic? We cannot give a clinical diagnosis. Only a qualified mental health professional can do that. However, the behavioral patterns we have examined in this video are deeply concerning. An inability to tolerate disagreement or boundaries, the use of spiritual authority to manipulate, a willingness to sacrifice family members to protect image, punishing independence and conscience, continuing emotional cruelty even at the end of life. These traits are commonly associated with narcissistic personality patterns, especially in high-control religious environments. Whether Joni Lamb had narcissistic personality disorder or simply developed extreme controlling behaviors due to her upbringing and the pressures of ministry, the result was the same. Her son was deeply wounded by the very person who should have protected him. Jonathan Lamb's story is heartbreaking, but it is also important. It shows what can happen when a parent becomes more loyal to their image, their ministry, and their need for control than they are to their own children. Jonathan chose to protect his daughter even when it cost him his relationship with his mother and his position in the ministry. That decision may have caused him great pain, but it also showed integrity. The Bible speaks clearly about this kind of stand. In Proverbs 31, 8-9, it says, "Speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves, for the rights of all who are destitute. Speak up and judge fairly. Defend the rights of the poor and needy." Jonathan did exactly that. When his daughter could not speak for herself, he chose to speak up. even when it meant losing his mother's approval, his title, and his place in the ministry. That kind of courage is rare, especially when the pressure is coming from your own parent. Thank you for watching all the way to the end. If this video helped you understand the pattern, please like and share it. Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments. Take care of yourself.